Life unfolds before us like an endless canvas, waiting for our brushstrokes to create meaning, purpose, and beauty. Every single day presents itself as an opportunity, a gift wrapped in 24 hours of pure potential, and yet so many of us wander through our existence half asleep, never fully grasping the extraordinary power we hold within ourselves to transform our world. Frank Crane's remarkable work, The Business of Living, stands as a timeless beacon of wisdom, reminding us that living itself is an art, a craft, a discipline that demands our attention, our energy, and our wholehearted commitment. This book is not merely a collection of pleasant thoughts or abstract philosophy. It is a practical manual for extracting the maximum value, meaning, and satisfaction from the precious time we have been given on this earth. The fundamental premise that Crane establishes from the very beginning is revolutionary in its simplicity. Life is not something that merely happens to us, but rather something we actively create, shape, and direct through our conscious choices and deliberate actions. We are not passive spectators in the theater of our own existence, but rather the playwrights, directors, and lead actors all rolled into one magnificent being. This realization alone has the power to shake us from our complacency and awaken us to the incredible responsibility and opportunity that each new morning brings. When we truly internalize this truth, everything changes, because we can no longer blame circumstances, other people, or bad luck for the quality of our lives. We must instead look to ourselves and our own choices as the primary determining factor. Crane begins by addressing one of the most pervasive obstacles to human flourishing: the tendency to postpone our real living until some imagined future moment when conditions will supposedly be perfect. How many times have we told ourselves that we'll start truly living when we get that promotion, when we lose those 20 pounds, when we find the right partner, when we have enough money, when the children are grown, when we retire? This perpetual postponement of genuine living is perhaps the greatest tragedy of human existence, because it means we're constantly sacrificing the present, which is the only time we actually possess, for an idealized future that may never arrive. The truth that Crane illuminates with brilliant clarity is that the only time to live is now, this very moment, with all its imperfections, challenges, and limitations. The philosophy Crane presents isn't about waiting for ideal circumstances. It's about recognizing that ideal circumstances are a myth, a mirage that keeps receding as we approach it. Instead, we must learn to make the most of whatever situation we find ourselves in right now. This doesn't mean settling for mediocrity or abandoning our dreams and ambitions. Rather, it means fully engaging with the present moment while simultaneously working toward our future goals. It means finding joy, meaning, and purpose in the journey itself, not just in some distant destination. Too many people spend their entire lives climbing a mountain, only to realize when they reach the summit that they wasted the climb by focusing exclusively on the destination and never appreciating the magnificent views along the way. One of the most powerful concepts Crane explores is the idea that our attitude toward life determines our experience of it far more than our actual circumstances. Two people can face identical situations and have completely different experiences based solely on their mental and emotional approach. This isn't mystical thinking or wishful optimism. It's a practical observation about how human psychology works. When we approach life with enthusiasm, curiosity, and determination, we naturally notice opportunities that others miss. We persist through difficulties that cause others to quit, and we extract value and learning from experiences that others dismiss as worthless. Our attitude acts as a filter through which we perceive reality, and that filter largely determines what we see, how we interpret it, and what actions we take in response. Crane delves deeply into the relationship between our thoughts and our reality. He makes the compelling case that we largely become what we think about most consistently. Our dominant thoughts shape our beliefs shape our actions, and our actions shape our reality. This means that cultivating the right kind of thinking isn't just a nice-to-have luxury for positive people. It's an absolute necessity for anyone who wants to create a life worth living. We must become vigilant guardians of our mental space, carefully choosing what ideas, beliefs, and narratives we allow to take root in our consciousness. Every thought we entertain is like a seed that, if given attention and energy, will eventually grow and bear fruit in our external reality. This is why it's so critical to be selective about what we feed our minds, what we read, what we watch, who we spend time with, and what conversations we engage in. The book emphasizes that genuine living requires courage, And not just the dramatic courage of heroic moments, but the everyday courage to be authentic, to speak our truth, to pursue our passions even when others don't understand, to stand by our principles even when it's inconvenient. This kind of courage isn't about being fearless. It's about feeling the fear and moving forward anyway. It's about acknowledging our doubts and insecurities while refusing to let them dictate our choices. Crane reminds us that every person who has ever accomplished anything meaningful has had to push through fear, doubt, and uncertainty. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't the absence of these feelings, but the willingness to act despite them. Courage is like a muscle that grows stronger with use. So each time we act courageously in small ways, we build our capacity for larger acts of courage. A significant portion of Crane's wisdom focuses on the importance of developing a clear sense of purpose. He argues that humans are purpose-driven creatures and that much of our unhappiness and dissatisfaction stems from living without a compelling sense of direction. When we lack purpose, we drift aimlessly, buffeted by circumstances and the agendas of others, never quite feeling that our life belongs to us. But when we identify what truly matters to us and commit ourselves to pursuing it, everything changes. Suddenly, we have a criterion for making decisions, a reason to get up in the morning, a standard by which to measure whether we're spending our time wisely. Purpose transforms random activity into meaningful work, an obligation into opportunity. It gives us the strength to persevere through difficulties because we understand why we're doing what we're doing and why it matters. Crane doesn't advocate for selfish individualism or the pursuit of personal gain at others' expense. Rather, he emphasizes that true fulfillment comes from aligning our individual purpose with service to something larger than ourselves. The most satisfied, well-adjusted people are those who find ways to contribute meaningfully to their families, communities, and the world at large. This contribution doesn't have to be grandiose or world-changing in obvious ways. Even small acts of kindness, integrity, and excellence in our daily work create ripples that spread far beyond what we can see or measure. When we stop obsessing about our own happiness and start focusing on how we can add value to others' lives, a remarkable thing happens. Our own happiness increases dramatically as a natural byproduct of this outward focus. The business of living, as Crane presents it, requires us to develop certain essential qualities and habits. Chief among these is the practice of gratitude. He makes the powerful observation that grateful people are invariably happier and more successful than ungrateful people, not because they have more to be grateful for, but because they've trained themselves to notice and appreciate what they already have. Gratitude isn't about denying reality or pretending everything is perfect. It's about maintaining perspective and recognizing that even in difficult circumstances, there are things worth acknowledging and celebrating. The practice of daily gratitude shifts our focus from what's missing to what's present, from what's wrong to what's right. And this shift in focus fundamentally alters our experience of life. It's difficult to feel simultaneously grateful and miserable, which is why gratitude is such a powerful antidote to depression, anxiety, and dissatisfaction. Another crucial quality Crane emphasizes is persistence. He points out that most people fail not because they're incapable, but because they quit too soon. They underestimate how much sustained effort is required to achieve anything worthwhile, and they give up at the first sign of difficulty or delay. Success in any endeavor, whether it's building a business, creating art, developing a skill, or maintaining a relationship, requires the ability to persist through setbacks, disappointments, and periods of apparent lack of progress. Crane reminds us that the most spectacular successes often come just after the point where most people would have given up. The person who persists one more time than they fail is the person who ultimately succeeds. This is why persistence is often more important than talent, intelligence, or initial advantages. Anyone can start something when enthusiasm is high, but only those with true persistence can push through when the initial excitement fades and the work becomes difficult. Crane also addresses the critical importance of self-discipline and personal responsibility. He makes it clear that we cannot blame our circumstances, our upbringing, our lack of resources, or the actions of others for the quality of our lives. While these factors certainly influence our situation, they don't determine our response to it. We always retain the power to choose our attitude, our effort, and our direction, regardless of external conditions. This isn't about harsh self-judgment or denying that we face real obstacles. It's about recognizing that we have far more agency than we typically acknowledge. When we accept full responsibility for our lives, we reclaim our power to change them. As long as we're blaming external factors, we remain victims. The moment we accept responsibility, we become empowered agents of change in our own lives. The book explores the relationship between character and destiny, arguing that who we are ultimately matters more than what happens to us. External success without inner development is hollow and unsustainable, while strong character provides a foundation for genuine, lasting accomplishment and fulfillment. Crane encourages us to invest at least as much energy in developing our character, our integrity, our wisdom, and our compassion as we invest in pursuing external goals. The qualities we cultivate within ourselves cannot be taken away by circumstances, and they become the lens through which we perceive and engage with the world. A person of strong character will find ways to thrive even in adverse circumstances, while a person of weak character will squander even the most favorable circumstances. This is why character development should be seen not as a luxury or nice extra, but as the very foundation of a well-lived life. Crane dedicates substantial attention to the topic of relationships and human connection. He observes that much of the richness and meaning of life comes through our connections with other people. Yet we often take these relationships for granted or neglect them in favor of less important pursuits. He emphasizes that building and maintaining meaningful relationships requires intentional effort, genuine interest in others, and the willingness to be vulnerable and authentic. We cannot phone in our most important relationships and expect them to thrive. Just as a garden requires consistent attention, water, and care to flourish, our relationships need regular investment of time, energy, and emotional presence. The quality of our relationships more than any other single factor determines our overall happiness and life satisfaction. Yet most people invest far more effort in their careers than in their relationships, then wonder why they feel lonely and disconnected despite professional success. One of the most valuable insights Crane offers is about the nature of happiness. He dismantles the common misconception that happiness is a destination we reach by acquiring certain things or achieving certain goals. Instead, he reveals that happiness is a byproduct of living well, of engaging fully with life, of contributing meaningfully to others, of growing and developing as a person. The happiest people aren't those who have the most, but those who make the most of what they have. They're not waiting for happiness to arrive. They're creating it through their daily choices, attitudes, and actions. Happiness comes from having something meaningful to do, someone to love, and something to look forward to. It comes from the satisfaction of using our capabilities fully, from the warmth of genuine connection with others, from the pride of doing good work, from the peace of living in alignment with our values. Crane also tackles the inevitable reality of suffering and difficulty. He doesn't offer false promises that positive thinking will eliminate all problems or that following his advice will create a life free from pain. Instead, he provides a framework for understanding and navigating the challenges that everyone faces. He suggests that much of our suffering comes not from our circumstances themselves, but from our resistance to them and our insistence that they should be different. When we can accept reality as it is, not as we wish it were, we conserve enormous energy that would otherwise be wasted in futile resistance, and we can focus instead on constructive action to improve our situation. Acceptance doesn't mean resignation or passivity. It means clearly seeing what is so that we can deal with it effectively rather than exhausting ourselves fighting against reality. Furthermore, Crane points out that difficulties and challenges serve an essential purpose in our development. Just as muscles grow stronger through resistance training, our character, capabilities, and wisdom develop through facing and overcoming obstacles. If life were easy, we would remain weak, soft, and undeveloped. The very struggles we wish to avoid are often the experiences that shape us into people capable of handling greater opportunities and responsibilities. This doesn't mean we should seek out suffering, but rather that we should recognize its value when it inevitably appears and extract whatever lessons and growth it offers. Every challenge we overcome increases our confidence and capability, preparing us for even greater challenges ahead. The person who has never faced adversity remains fragile and untested, while the person who has weathered storms becomes strong and resilient. The book emphasizes the importance of continuous learning and growth throughout life. Crane argues passionately against the tendency to stop learning once formal education ends. He sees life itself as an ongoing education, with every experience offering potential lessons for those willing to remain curious and observant. The moment we decide we know everything we need to know is the moment we begin to stagnate and decline. In contrast, maintaining a learner's mindset keeps us engaged, adaptable, and growing regardless of our age or circumstances. This doesn't necessarily mean formal study, though that certainly has value, but rather approaching each day with openness to new insights, perspectives, and understanding. The most successful and fulfilled people remain perpetual students of life, always curious, always willing to admit what they don't know, always excited to discover something new. Crane discusses the concept of balance and the danger of extremes. He observes that many people sabotage their own well-being by pursuing single objectives to the exclusion of everything else. The workaholic neglects health and relationships. The health fanatic becomes obsessed with diet and exercise at the expense of enjoying life. The intellectual neglects physical and emotional development. True wisdom lies in recognizing that we are multidimensional beings with various needs and aspects that all deserve attention. Creating a fulfilling life requires us to develop and nurture all dimensions of our being: physical, mental, emotional, social, and spiritual. Neglecting any one of these dimensions creates an imbalance that eventually undermines our overall well-being, no matter how successful we might be in the dimensions we do focus on. The spiritual dimension receives particular attention from Crane, though he approaches it in a broad, inclusive way, rather than advocating for any specific religious tradition. He suggests that humans have an innate need for meaning, transcendence, and connection to something greater than themselves. Ignoring or suppressing this spiritual dimension leaves us feeling incomplete, no matter how successful we might be in material terms. Engaging with the spiritual dimension, whether through traditional religion, contemplative practice, connection with nature, artistic expression, or philosophical inquiry, adds depth and richness to our experience of life. It reminds us that we're part of something larger than our individual existence, and connects us to eternal questions and values that transcend the petty concerns of daily life. Crane also explores the relationship between action and contemplation. While he strongly emphasizes the importance of taking action rather than merely thinking or talking about our intentions, he also recognizes the value of regular reflection, meditation, and thoughtful consideration. The key is finding the right balance. Enough contemplation to ensure our actions are well-directed and aligned with our values, but not so much that we become paralyzed by overthinking and never actually do anything. Similarly, we need enough action to make actual progress, but also enough reflection to learn from our experiences and adjust our approach as needed. Action without reflection leads to busy meaninglessness, while reflection without action leads to stagnant philosophizing. Both are necessary, and the wise person cultivates both capacities. The theme of simplicity appears throughout the book. Crane suggests that many of us complicate our lives unnecessarily with excessive possessions, commitments, drama, and concerns that don't genuinely matter. He advocates for regularly examining our lives and eliminating what doesn't serve us or bring us joy. This simplification isn't about deprivation or asceticism, but about creating space for what truly matters. When we clear away the clutter, both physical and mental, we gain clarity about our priorities and free up resources to invest in the people, activities, and pursuits that genuinely enrich our lives. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication, allowing us to focus our finite energy on what matters most, rather than dissipating it across 1,000 trivial concerns. Crane addresses the topic of money and material success with refreshing balance. He neither demonizes wealth nor elevates it as the ultimate goal. Instead, he presents money as a tool that, like any tool, can be used well or poorly. He encourages us to develop financial responsibility and to pursue prosperity, not for its own sake, but for the freedom and options it provides. At the same time, he warns against sacrificing more important values and relationships in the pursuit of wealth, and reminds us that beyond a certain point of material comfort, additional money contributes very little to genuine happiness and well-being. Money is an excellent servant, but a terrible master, and the key is keeping it in its proper place as a means to meaningful ends rather than becoming an end in itself. One of the most practical sections of the book deals with time management and the wise use of our hours. Crane observes that time is the one truly non-renewable resource we possess. Once a moment passes, it's gone forever, and we can never reclaim it. This makes how we spend our time the most important decision we make. Yet most people give more thought to what they'll eat for lunch than to whether they're investing their precious hours in ways that align with their values and goals. He advocates for regularly auditing our time use, eliminating activities that don't serve us, and jealously guarding time for what matters most. Every yes to something is simultaneously a no to something else, and we must be conscious about these trade-offs, rather than letting our time be consumed by default by whatever is most urgent or most insistent. Crane also discusses the power of habits in shaping our lives. He recognizes that much of our daily behavior operates on autopilot, driven by established habits rather than conscious choice. This means that developing positive habits is one of the highest leverage activities we can engage in, because good habits essentially automate beneficial behavior. Once established, they require much less willpower and conscious effort to maintain. Conversely, bad habits can quietly sabotage our best intentions and keep us trapped in patterns that don't serve us. He encourages us to consciously design our habits, starting small but being persistent, until the behaviors we want become automatic. We are what we repeatedly do, which means excellence is not an act but a habit. By carefully constructing our habits, we essentially program our future selves for success. The book contains powerful insights about failure and setbacks. Crane reframes failure not as something to be avoided at all costs, but as an inevitable and valuable part of any worthwhile endeavor. Every successful person has failed repeatedly. The difference is that they didn't let failure define them or stop them. Instead, they extracted lessons from their failures and used them as stepping stones toward eventual success. Crane encourages us to develop resilience, the ability to bounce back from disappointments and setbacks without losing heart or giving up on our goals. This resilience isn't something we're born with. It's a quality we develop through practice and through consciously choosing how we interpret and respond to adverse events. Failure is only truly failure if we fail to learn from it and allow it to stop us. Otherwise, it's simply feedback and education on the path to success. Crane explores the concept of legacy and the question of what we'll leave behind when we're gone. He suggests that consciously considering our legacy can be a powerful motivating force, helping us make choices that align with how we want to be remembered. But he also cautions against becoming so focused on posthumous reputation that we fail to live fully in the present. The best legacy, he suggests, is simply a life well lived, marked by integrity, kindness, courage, and the pursuit of meaningful contribution. How we treat people, the quality of work we produce, the values we embody, and the positive difference we make all become part of our legacy, regardless of whether our name is remembered. We may not all be remembered by history, but we can all touch the lives of those around us in ways that ripple forward through time. Throughout the book, Crane returns repeatedly to the theme of authenticity and the importance of being true to ourselves. He observes that many people spend their lives trying to meet others' expectations, playing roles that don't genuinely fit them, pursuing goals that don't actually matter to them. This inauthenticity creates a deep sense of dissatisfaction and disconnection, even when we appear successful by conventional standards. He encourages us to do the difficult work of discovering who we really are, what we genuinely value, and what we authentically want, and then to have the courage to live accordingly, even if our choices don't conform to others' expectations or conventional definitions of success. There is tremendous liberation in accepting ourselves as we are and choosing to live from that authentic place rather than constantly trying to be someone we're not. Crane addresses the universal human need for both security and adventure. He recognizes that we need some stability, routine, and predictability in our lives to feel safe and grounded. But we also need novelty, challenge, and growth to feel fully alive and engaged. Finding the right balance between these competing needs is essential for well-being. Too much security becomes stagnation and boredom, while too much chaos creates anxiety and exhaustion. The specific balance point differs for each person, and part of self-knowledge involves understanding our own optimal mix of stability and adventure. Some people thrive with more routine and predictability, while others need more variety and excitement. There's no universal right answer, only the answer that's right for each individual. The book includes valuable guidance on dealing with criticism and opposition. Crane acknowledges that anyone who does anything worthwhile will face criticism, skepticism, and resistance from others. This is inevitable and shouldn't discourage us. At the same time, not all criticism is baseless or motivated by ill will. Some of it contains valuable feedback that can help us improve. The key is developing the wisdom to distinguish between criticism that deserves our attention and criticism that we should simply acknowledge and move past. He encourages us to remain open to legitimate feedback while not allowing others' negativity to deter us from pursuing our path. Critics are often people who have never dared to try what they're criticizing, and we should consider the source before taking criticism to heart. Crane also discusses the importance of enthusiasm and passion in living well. He observes that people who approach life with genuine enthusiasm and excitement accomplish far more and enjoy the journey far more than those who approach everything with cynicism and boredom. Enthusiasm isn't about being unrealistically positive or ignoring genuine problems. It's about bringing energy, interest, and engagement to whatever we're doing. This quality is largely a choice, a habit of mind we can cultivate through practice. When we commit to finding something interesting or valuable in each experience and bringing our full energy to each task, we transform not only our own experience but also our impact on others around us. Enthusiasm is contagious, and enthusiastic people naturally attract opportunities, support, and collaboration that more cynical people miss. The concept of contribution and service appears as a golden thread throughout Crane's work. He makes a compelling case that the happiest and most fulfilled people are those who find ways to contribute meaningfully to others and to causes larger than themselves. This doesn't require grand gestures or fame. It simply requires that we approach our work, relationships, and daily interactions with the intention to add value, to help, to make things better in whatever small ways we can. When we shift our focus from what we can get to what we can give, from how we can be served to how we can serve, our entire experience of life transforms. We move from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset, from feeling like victims to feeling like agents of positive change. Service to others gives our lives meaning and connects us to something larger than our individual concerns. Crane emphasizes that developing wisdom and perspective requires stepping back from the constant busyness and urgency that characterizes modern life. He advocates for regular periods of solitude and reflection, times when we disconnect from external demands and distractions to reconnect with ourselves. In these quiet moments, we can gain clarity about what really matters. We can process our experiences and extract their lessons. We can restore our energy and reconnect with our deeper purpose. Without these periods of stepping back, we risk getting completely lost in the day-to-day urgency and losing sight of the bigger picture of what we're trying to create and who we're trying to become. Solitude isn't loneliness. It's intentional time alone for renewal, reflection, and realignment with our deepest values and goals. The book addresses the challenge of dealing with difficult people and challenging relationships. Crane acknowledges that we will inevitably encounter people who frustrate us, disappoint us, or even actively work against us. He offers practical wisdom for navigating these situations without either becoming a doormat or responding with destructive anger. He emphasizes the importance of maintaining our own integrity and not allowing others' poor behavior to pull us down to their level. Sometimes the wisest course is to establish firm boundaries or even distance ourselves from toxic people. While other times it involves finding compassion for difficult people by recognizing that their behavior usually stems from their own pain and limitations. Understanding doesn't mean accepting mistreatment, but it can help us respond more skillfully. Crane explores the relationship between acceptance and change, two concepts that might seem contradictory but are actually complementary. He explains that genuine change begins with accepting reality as it currently is, not as we wish it were. Denial and resistance keep us stuck, while acceptance creates the solid ground from which we can move forward constructively. This doesn't mean resigning ourselves to the circumstances we don't like. It means acknowledging them clearly so we can take effective action to improve them. Fighting against reality as it is wastes energy that could be invested in creating reality as we want it to be. Acceptance and change work together. We accept what is while working to create what could be. The book contains profound insights about aging and the different seasons of life. Crane rejects the notion that youth is the only valuable time of life and that aging represents only loss and decline. Instead, he presents a vision of life as a journey where each stage has its own particular gifts, challenges, and opportunities. Youth has energy and possibility, middle age has competence and productivity, and later life has wisdom and perspective. Each season is valuable in its own right, and the key to living well is to fully embrace and engage with whatever season we're currently in, rather than always looking backward or forward with regret or longing. Every age has its advantages, and wise people learn to appreciate and leverage the unique strengths of their current life stage. Crane discusses the importance of maintaining a sense of wonder and not becoming jaded or cynical as we accumulate experience. He observes that children naturally approach the world with curiosity and amazement, finding magic in ordinary things, but many adults lose this quality and come to see the world as mundane and predictable. Yet reality remains as extraordinary as ever. What changes is our perception. He encourages us to consciously cultivate fresh eyes, to regularly remind ourselves of the remarkable nature of existence itself, to find mystery and beauty in things we've come to take for granted. This isn't about naive optimism, but about maintaining accurate perception of just how astonishing it is that we're here at all, conscious and capable of experiencing this vast universe. Wonder enriches life immeasurably and keeps us engaged and appreciative. The book addresses the topic of comparison and competition with others. Crane points out that constantly measuring ourselves against others is a recipe for misery, because there will always be someone who has more, does better, or seems more successful in some dimension. This comparison game is particularly destructive because it's based on incomplete information. We're comparing our behind-the-scenes reality with others' highlight reel. He encourages us instead to compete only with ourselves, to focus on whether we're growing, improving, and becoming better than we were yesterday. This doesn't mean we can't learn from others or be inspired by their example, but our primary measure of success should be our own progress and development. The only person you need to be better than is the person you were yesterday. Crane explores the role of imagination and creativity in living well. He argues that humans are essentially creative beings, and that we need outlets for our creative impulses regardless of whether we consider ourselves artists. This creativity might express itself through traditional arts, but it can equally manifest in how we solve problems, organize our homes, prepare meals, raise children, or do our jobs. The key is approaching life creatively rather than merely mechanically, bringing our unique perspective and imagination to bear on whatever we're doing. When we engage our creative faculties, work becomes play, obligation becomes opportunity, and mundane tasks become chances for self-expression. Creativity adds color, interest, and personal meaning to everything we touch. The book contains valuable guidance on decision-making and dealing with uncertainty. Crane acknowledges that many of our important decisions must be made with incomplete information, and that we can never be entirely certain we're choosing correctly. Waiting for complete certainty often means never deciding at all, which is itself a decision with consequences. He encourages us to gather what information we reasonably can, consult our values and intuition, make the best choice we can with what we know, and then commit fully to making that choice work rather than endlessly second-guessing ourselves. He also reminds us that very few decisions are truly irreversible, and that we can usually adjust course if things don't work out as hoped. Perfect decisions are impossible, but good enough decisions made decisively are far better than endless deliberation. Crane discusses the importance of play and not taking ourselves too seriously. He observes that many people become so focused on achievement and responsibility that they forget how to simply enjoy themselves and have fun. Yet play isn't just for children. It's a human need at every age. Play refreshes us, sparks creativity, strengthens relationships, and reminds us that life isn't just about accomplishment and productivity. He encourages us to regularly engage in activities we find genuinely fun and enjoyable, without needing to justify them in terms of productivity or self-improvement. Sometimes the purpose of doing something is simply the joy of doing it. Life is meant to be enjoyed, not just endured or achieved, and play is an essential part of that enjoyment. The book addresses the concept of presence and the importance of being fully engaged in whatever we're doing rather than mentally somewhere else. Crane notes that many people go through life only half present, their minds constantly wandering to the past or future, to worries or fantasies, never fully attending to the actual moment they're in. This divided attention means we miss much of our own lives, and we fail to bring our full capabilities to bear on whatever we're doing. He advocates for cultivating the ability to focus completely on one thing at a time, to be fully with whoever we're with, to give our complete attention to the task at hand. This quality of presence dramatically enhances both our effectiveness and our enjoyment of life. When we're truly present, everything becomes richer and more satisfying. Crane explores the relationship between effort and ease, recognizing that both have their place in a well-lived life. Some things worth doing require sustained, intense effort, and there's no way around this. At the same time, constantly straining and forcing rarely produces the best results. Sometimes we need to relax our grip, stop trying so hard, and allow things to unfold more naturally. The wisdom lies in knowing when to push and when to release, when to exert maximum effort and when to trust the process and let things develop at their own pace. This balanced approach prevents both the passivity of never trying hard and the exhaustion of never letting up. There's a time to paddle hard and a time to let the current carry you. The book contains powerful insights about forgiveness and letting go of grudges. Crane explains that holding on to resentment and anger toward those who have wronged us primarily hurts ourselves rather than the other person. Forgiveness isn't about condoning wrong behavior or allowing ourselves to be mistreated. It's about releasing the emotional poison that damages us when we cling to anger and bitterness. He acknowledges that forgiveness can be difficult and may take time, but he emphasizes that it's essential for our own peace and well-being. Sometimes forgiveness includes reconciliation with the other person, but sometimes it simply means letting go of our anger while maintaining appropriate boundaries. Forgiveness frees us from being chained to past hurts and allows us to move forward unburdened. Crane discusses the importance of integrity and keeping our word, both to others and to ourselves. He argues that our self-respect and others' trust in us depend on our consistency between what we say and what we do. When we make commitments and then fail to follow through, we erode not only others' confidence in us, but also our own confidence in ourselves. Over time, this makes us less capable and less willing to take on challenges, because at some level we don't trust ourselves to complete what we start. Building and maintaining integrity requires being careful about what we commit to, being realistic about our limitations, and then doing whatever it takes to honor the commitments we do make. Integrity is the foundation of self-trust, and self-trust is the foundation of confidence and capability. The book addresses the topic of success and how to define it for ourselves rather than accepting society's definitions. Crane points out that conventional markers of success, such as wealth, status, and recognition, often have little to do with genuine well-being and fulfillment. He encourages us to think deeply about what success means to us personally, based on our own values, and what we genuinely want our lives to be about. For some, success might mean building a thriving business. For others, it might mean being present and engaged with family. For still others, it might mean creating art or serving their community. The key is being clear about our own definition so we can pursue it intentionally rather than climbing ladders that turn out to be leaning against the wrong walls. True success is living in alignment with our own values and creating a life we find meaningful. Crane explores the power of questions and how asking better questions leads to better answers and better lives. He observes that the quality of our questions determines the quality of our thinking and ultimately our results. If we constantly ask ourselves victim questions like, "Why does this always happen to me?" or "Why can't I ever succeed?" we'll get victim answers that reinforce helplessness. If instead we ask empowering questions like, "What can I learn from this?" or "How can I make this work?" we direct our minds toward possibilities and solutions. He encourages us to become conscious of the questions we habitually ask ourselves and to upgrade them to questions that serve us better. The questions we ask shape our focus, and our focus shapes our reality. The book contains valuable wisdom about contentment and the balance between accepting where we are and striving for more. Crane rejects both the restless dissatisfaction that never allows us to enjoy what we have and the complacent settling that stops us from growing and achieving our potential. True contentment, he suggests, involves appreciating our current circumstances while simultaneously working toward improvement. We can be satisfied with where we are without being satisfied to stay there. This paradoxical balance allows us to enjoy the journey while still moving toward meaningful destinations. Contentment doesn't mean giving up ambition. It means not postponing happiness until some future achievement while still pursuing meaningful goals. Crane delves into the nature of confidence and how it develops. He explains that genuine confidence doesn't come from positive affirmations or self-deception, but from a track record of keeping promises to ourselves and successfully handling challenges. Every time we do something difficult, every time we keep a commitment to ourselves, every time we overcome an obstacle, we add to our reservoir of self-trust. This self-trust becomes the foundation of confidence. He emphasizes that confidence isn't about never doubting or fearing. It's about trusting that we can handle whatever comes, based on evidence of having done so in the past. This is why taking on challenges, even when we're not sure we'll succeed, is so important for building genuine confidence. The book addresses the role of patience in achieving meaningful goals. Crane observes that we live in a culture of instant gratification, where we expect quick results and become discouraged when progress is slow. But he reminds us that anything truly worthwhile takes time to build, whether it's a skill, a relationship, a business, or a body of work. The most valuable achievements in life cannot be rushed or microwaved into existence. They require sustained effort over months, years, or even decades. Patience isn't passive waiting. It's active persistence combined with the wisdom to understand that results follow their own timeline, not ours. The farmer who plants seeds doesn't dig them up every day to check on their progress. He trusts the process and tends to what needs tending while allowing growth to happen at its natural pace. Crane explores the relationship between vulnerability and strength. He challenges the common misconception that strength means never showing weakness or admitting uncertainty. True strength, he argues, includes the courage to be vulnerable, to admit when we don't know something, to acknowledge our fears and limitations, to ask for help when we need it. This kind of authentic vulnerability actually strengthens our relationships and makes us more effective leaders, because people trust and respect honesty far more than false bravado. The person who pretends to have it all together fools no one and connects with no one. The person who can be real about their struggles while still moving forward inspires and attracts genuine support from others. The book contains insightful observations about the nature of work and finding meaning in our labor. Crane emphasizes that there's dignity in all honest work, regardless of how society ranks different occupations. The janitor who takes pride in his work and does it with excellence embodies more nobility than the executive who does shoddy work with a superior attitude. He encourages us to bring our best effort and attention to whatever work we're doing, not because it's spectacular or prestigious, but because doing quality work builds our character and self-respect. Moreover, when we approach even mundane tasks with full engagement and the intention to do them well, we often find unexpected satisfaction and meaning. Work isn't just about earning money, it's about contributing value, developing our capabilities, and expressing our commitment to excellence. Crane discusses the importance of surrounding ourselves with the right influences and people. He observes that we become like the people we spend the most time with and the ideas we expose ourselves to most frequently. This means we need to be intentional about who we allow into our inner circle and what content we consume. Negative, cynical, or small-minded people will gradually pull us down to their level, while positive, ambitious, and generous people will elevate us. This isn't about being elitist or abandoning old friends, but about recognizing that some relationships fuel our growth while others hinder it, and adjusting accordingly. We should seek out people who challenge us to be better, who believe in possibilities, who are doing things we admire. The book addresses the concept of attention and what we choose to focus on. Crane makes the point that our attention is our most valuable currency, more valuable even than our time, because how we direct our attention determines the quality of our time. We can spend an hour in misery by focusing on everything wrong, or spend that same hour in contentment by focusing on what's right. We can let our attention be constantly hijacked by notifications, news, and others' agendas, or we can deliberately direct it toward what matters most to us. Mastering our attention is one of the most important skills we can develop, yet few people ever think consciously about it. They allow their attention to be pulled in whatever direction the loudest voice or brightest light happens to be, then wonder why they feel scattered and unfulfilled. Crane explores the relationship between expectations and happiness. He observes that much of our unhappiness stems from the gap between our expectations and reality. When reality exceeds our expectations, we feel delighted. When it falls short, we feel disappointed, regardless of how objectively good or bad the situation is. This means that managing our expectations wisely is crucial for our well-being. This doesn't mean having low expectations or not hoping for good outcomes, but rather not becoming so attached to specific outcomes that we can't appreciate what actually happens. It means hoping for the best while being prepared to find value in whatever occurs. Flexibility in expectations allows us to roll with life's inevitable surprises without constant disappointment. The book contains valuable insights about the nature of change and personal transformation. Crane acknowledges that changing ourselves is one of the most difficult things we can attempt, because our habits, beliefs, and patterns are deeply ingrained. Yet he also emphasizes that change is always possible at any age or stage of life. The key is understanding that real change happens gradually through consistent small actions, not through sudden dramatic resolutions that quickly fade. He encourages us to focus on making small improvements daily, rather than attempting massive transformations overnight. These small changes compound over time, and before we know it, we've become someone quite different from who we were. The person who improves just 1% each day will be dramatically transformed within a year. Crane discusses the importance of having both roots and wings, both connection and independence. He recognizes that humans need to belong, to be part of families and communities, to have places and people we're connected to. These roots provide stability, identity, and support. But we also need independence, the freedom to think for ourselves, make our own choices, and chart our own course. The challenge is finding the right balance, being connected enough to draw strength from our relationships and communities, but independent enough to be true to ourselves and not simply conform to others' expectations. Too much emphasis on belonging leads to loss of individuality, while too much emphasis on independence leads to isolation. The goal is to be authentically ourselves within the context of meaningful connections. The book addresses the role of beauty and aesthetics in a well-lived life. Crane argues that beauty isn't a luxury or frivolity, but a genuine human need. Surrounding ourselves with beauty, whether through nature, art, music, or simply making our daily environment more pleasant, nourishes something essential in us. Beauty uplifts our spirits, reminds us of transcendent values, and provides respite from the utilitarian demands of daily life. He encourages us to seek out beauty, to create it where we can, and to appreciate it wherever we find it. This doesn't require wealth or sophisticated taste, it simply requires attention and intention. Even small acts like arranging flowers or playing music can bring meaningful beauty into our lives. Crane explores the concept of emotional intelligence and the importance of understanding and managing our emotions. He observes that many people are ruled by their emotions, blown about by whatever feeling happens to arise, never realizing they can develop mastery over their emotional life. He emphasizes that emotional intelligence isn't about suppressing emotions or pretending we don't feel what we feel, but about understanding our emotions, accepting them without judgment, and then choosing how we respond to them. We can feel angry without acting angrily, feel afraid without being paralyzed, feel sad without collapsing into depression. The space between stimulus and response, where we choose how to react, is where our power and freedom lie. The book contains profound insights about generosity and the abundance mindset. Crane makes the case that generous people live richer lives than selfish people, not just morally but practically and emotionally. When we're generous with our time, attention, money, and goodwill, we create positive connections, opportunities, and experiences that wouldn't otherwise exist. Generosity comes from a sense of abundance, a trust that there's enough to go around and that giving doesn't diminish us. In contrast, selfishness comes from scarcity thinking, a fear that if we give, we'll be left with too little. Paradoxically, the generous approach often leads to greater material success as well as greater fulfillment, because generous people build stronger networks and attract more opportunities. What we give out tends to come back multiplied. Crane discusses the importance of having both structure and flexibility in our lives. He recognizes that too much structure becomes rigid and suffocating, leaving no room for spontaneity, serendipity, or adaptation to changing circumstances. But too little structure leads to chaos and lack of progress toward meaningful goals. The wise approach is to create enough structure to support consistent progress and good habits, while maintaining enough flexibility to adapt when circumstances change or unexpected opportunities arise. Structure provides the container within which creativity and spontaneity can flourish. It's like the banks of a river. They don't restrict the water, but give it direction and power. The book addresses the challenge of maintaining hope in difficult times. Crane acknowledges that life will bring periods of hardship, loss, and disappointment when hope feels hard to sustain. Yet he emphasizes that maintaining hope isn't about being unrealistic or in denial about difficulties. Rather, it's about remembering that circumstances are always temporary and changeable, that we've survived difficulties before, and that dawn always follows even the darkest night. Hope is a choice we make, a discipline we practice, especially when external circumstances don't support it. It's the decision to believe that better days are possible and worth working toward, even when current evidence seems bleak. This hope sustains us through the hard times and keeps us moving forward when quitting would be easier. Crane explores the relationship between knowledge and wisdom. He points out that knowledge is about accumulating information and facts, while wisdom is about knowing how to apply that knowledge well, understanding context and nuance, recognizing what matters and what doesn't. In our information-rich age, knowledge is abundant and easily accessible, but wisdom remains rare and valuable. He encourages us to pursue wisdom at least as vigorously as we pursue knowledge, and recognizes that wisdom often comes more from lived experience, reflection, and learning from mistakes than from formal education. The wisest people aren't necessarily the most educated in conventional terms, but they're the ones who've paid attention to life's lessons and developed sound judgment about what works and what doesn't. The book contains valuable guidance about handling success. Crane observes that success brings its own challenges and temptations, and that many people are undone by success more than by failure. Success can breed arrogance, complacency, and loss of the hunger and humility that led to success in the first place. He encourages us to meet success with gratitude and continued commitment to growth rather than with self-satisfaction and coasting. He also reminds us that external success means little if it comes at the cost of our character, health, or relationships. True success includes maintaining our integrity and humanity even as we achieve our goals. The person who succeeds while becoming someone they're not proud of hasn't truly succeeded at all. Crane discusses the importance of having meaningful rituals and traditions in our lives. He observes that humans have always used rituals to mark important moments, create connection, and remind themselves of what matters. These don't have to be religious or elaborate. They can be as simple as a family dinner tradition, a morning routine that starts the day well, or an annual gathering with friends. These rituals provide continuity, meaning, and shared identity. They're anchors in our lives that remind us who we are and what we value. In our modern tendency to throw out tradition and constantly seek novelty, we may have lost something valuable. He encourages us to consciously create and maintain rituals that enrich our lives and strengthen our connections. The book addresses the concept of adaptability and the ability to adjust to changing circumstances. Crane recognizes that the world is constantly changing, and that rigid insistence on one way of doing things inevitably leads to problems. The most successful and fulfilled people are those who can adapt their approaches while staying true to their core values and goals. This adaptability isn't about being wishy-washy or having no principles, but about being flexible in tactics while remaining committed to purpose. It's like a tree that bends in the wind but doesn't break, that adjusts to seasons but maintains its essential nature. Those who can't or won't adapt get left behind or broken by changes they refuse to acknowledge, while those who embrace change as a constant find ways to thrive in any environment. Crane explores the role of mystery and the unknowable in human life. He suggests that rationalism and the desire to explain everything can rob life of its magic and depth. There are dimensions of existence that exceed our capacity for rational understanding, and that's not only acceptable but enriching. Mystery invites wonder, humility, and continued exploration. The person who thinks they've figured everything out has stopped growing. He encourages us to be comfortable with ambiguity and uncertainty, to accept that some questions don't have neat answers, to appreciate the mysterious and inexplicable aspects of existence rather than being frustrated by them. This comfort with mystery paradoxically leads to greater peace than the anxious pursuit of certainty about everything. The book contains insights about the nature of courage and how it differs from fearlessness. Crane emphasizes that courage isn't the absence of fear, but action in the presence of fear. The person who feels no fear needs no courage. Courage is specifically the quality of doing what needs to be done despite feeling afraid. He encourages us to reframe our relationship with fear, seeing it not as something that disqualifies us from action, but as a signal that we're attempting something meaningful. If we're never afraid, we're never stretching ourselves or attempting anything that matters. Fear is often the admission price for a life of significance. The question isn't whether we feel fear, but whether we allow it to stop us. Crane discusses the importance of self-awareness and honest self-assessment. He observes that many people lack accurate understanding of their own strengths, weaknesses, patterns, and blind spots. This lack of self-awareness leads to repeated mistakes, confused priorities, and ineffective strategies. He encourages us to develop the practice of honest self-examination, perhaps through journaling, meditation, or conversations with trusted friends who will tell us the truth. This self-awareness isn't about harsh self-criticism, but about clear-eyed understanding of who we are, what we're good at, where we struggle, and what drives us. With this understanding, we can play to our strengths, compensate for our weaknesses, and make choices that align with our actual nature rather than some idealized image. The book addresses the relationship between solitude and loneliness. Crane makes an important distinction. Loneliness is a painful sense of disconnection and isolation, while solitude is chosen time alone that restores and renews us. Loneliness is something to be addressed by building better connections, while solitude is something to be cultivated as essential for well-being. In our hyper-connected world where we're never truly alone, the ability to spend quality time in solitude has become both more rare and more necessary. Solitude allows us to hear our own thoughts, reconnect with ourselves, and restore the energy that social interaction depletes. People who never spend time alone often don't really know themselves, while those who balance solitude with connection tend to have richer inner lives and more authentic relationships. Crane explores the concept of personal responsibility for our own happiness. He challenges the common tendency to blame external circumstances or other people for our unhappiness, arguing that while circumstances certainly influence our mood, we have far more control over our happiness than we typically acknowledge. He points out that happiness is primarily an inside job created by our thoughts, attitudes, focus, and choices rather than by what happens to us. Two people in identical circumstances can have vastly different levels of happiness based on their internal approach. This doesn't mean denying real difficulties or practicing toxic positivity, but recognizing that we're not helpless victims of our circumstances. We can work to improve external conditions while simultaneously taking responsibility for our internal state. The book contains valuable wisdom about the importance of finishing what we start. Crane observes that many people are excellent at beginning projects, full of enthusiasm and energy at the start, but struggle with following through to completion. This pattern of starting and not finishing gradually erodes self-confidence and credibility, both with others and with ourselves. He emphasizes that there's particular satisfaction and character development that comes from seeing things through, even when they've become difficult or boring, even when initial enthusiasm has faded. Finishing develops discipline, persistence, and self-trust. He encourages us to be more selective about what we start, but then to commit fully to completing what we've begun. Better to complete 3 things than to start 10 and finish none. Crane discusses the role of preparation in success. He points out that luck and opportunity do play a role in life outcomes, but that preparation is what allows us to capitalize on opportunities when they arise. The prepared person can seize chances that the unprepared person must let pass by. Most overnight successes are actually years of preparation meeting opportunity. He encourages us to invest consistently in developing our skills, knowledge, and capabilities even when we don't see immediate return on that investment. This preparation creates readiness for opportunities we can't yet see coming. The student who studies diligently is ready when the big test comes. The person who maintains their network is ready when a crucial connection could make a difference. Preparation is the work we do in private that allows us to perform in public. The book addresses the challenge of maintaining balance during intense focus on goals. Crane acknowledges that achieving significant goals often requires periods of intense, focused effort where other areas of life receive less attention. This is natural and sometimes necessary. However, he warns against letting this temporary imbalance become permanent. The entrepreneur who neglects health and family for years while building a business may succeed in business but fail at life. He encourages us to consciously choose when to push hard and when to pull back, to recognize that different seasons of life call for different emphases, and to periodically reassess whether our current allocation of energy aligns with our overall values and priorities. Intense focus is powerful, but it needs to be balanced over the long term with attention to all dimensions of well-being. Crane explores the importance of learning from others while finding our own path. He recognizes the value of mentors, role models, and learning from those who've gone before us. There's no need to reinvent every wheel or learn every lesson the hard way. At the same time, he cautions against trying to exactly replicate someone else's path or approach, because what works for one person may not work for another. We each have unique strengths, circumstances, and purposes. The wisdom is in learning principles from others while applying them in our own unique way, taking what works for us and leaving what doesn't. Imitation is a good starting point, but personalization is where real mastery begins. We should study masters in our field, but ultimately forge our own style. The book contains insights about the relationship between giving and receiving. Crane observes that many people are better at one than the other. Some give freely, but struggle to receive, while others take readily, but resist giving. Both imbalances create problems. He emphasizes that healthy relationships and healthy lives involve both giving and receiving in appropriate measure. Gracious receiving honors the giver and allows relationship to be reciprocal rather than one-directional. Generous giving creates goodwill and connection. The person who only gives and never receives often has issues with control or self-worth, while the person who only receives without giving becomes a drain on others. True abundance involves flowing in both directions, contributing our gifts while appreciating others' contributions. Crane discusses the importance of developing a personal philosophy of life. He encourages us to think deeply about fundamental questions. What do I believe about the nature of reality? What matters most to me? What principles will I not compromise? What is my purpose? How do I want to treat others? While we might not arrive at final permanent answers to these questions, the process of wrestling with them clarifies our thinking and provides a framework for making decisions. A well-developed personal philosophy acts as an internal compass that guides us when we're unsure which way to go. It prevents us from being blown about by every wind of opinion or circumstance. He encourages us to write out our philosophy, to refine it over time as we gain experience and insight, and to refer to it when facing important decisions. The book addresses the concept of legacy thinking and making choices with the long term in mind. Crane points out that many of our problems stem from optimizing for short-term pleasure or convenience at the expense of long-term well-being. The person who eats junk food is prioritizing immediate gratification over future health. The person who avoids difficult conversations is prioritizing temporary comfort over relationship health. He encourages us to develop the habit of asking ourselves, if I keep making this choice, where will I be in 5 or 10 years? Will my future self thank me for this decision or regret it? This kind of legacy thinking helps us make wiser choices in the present by connecting them to their long-term consequences. It helps us endure short-term discomfort for long-term gain. Crane explores the role of humor and not taking ourselves too seriously. He observes that people who can laugh, especially at themselves, tend to be happier and more resilient than those who approach everything with grim seriousness. Humor provides perspective, releases tension, and reminds us that life is absurd and unpredictable in ways that can be delightful rather than just frustrating. He encourages us to cultivate the ability to find humor even in difficult situations, not as denial, but as a coping mechanism that keeps difficulties from completely overwhelming us. The ability to laugh at our own mistakes and foibles indicates healthy self-acceptance and humility. Taking our responsibilities seriously while not taking ourselves too seriously is a mark of maturity and wisdom. The book contains valuable guidance about handling transitions and endings. Crane acknowledges that every phase of life eventually ends, and that these endings can be difficult even when we're moving towards something positive. Graduating, changing jobs, ending relationships, moving locations, all involve loss even when they're necessary or desired changes. He emphasizes the importance of properly acknowledging and grieving endings rather than rushing past them to the next thing. These transitions are opportunities for reflection, for appreciating what was, for extracting lessons before moving forward. Unprocessed endings carry forward as unresolved emotions that complicate new beginnings. He encourages us to consciously mark significant transitions with ritual or reflection, to honor what's ending before fully embracing what's beginning. Crane discusses the importance of developing multiple sources of meaning and identity. He observes that people who derive all their meaning from a single source, whether that's their career, their relationship, their children, or their physical appearance, are vulnerable to devastation if that source is disrupted or lost. The executive whose entire identity is their job faces crisis in retirement. The parent whose entire identity is their children faces emptiness when they leave home. He encourages us to cultivate richness in multiple dimensions: work, relationships, hobbies, service, learning, creativity, spirituality. This diversification isn't about being scattered, but about being well-rounded. When we have multiple sources of meaning, challenges in one area don't destroy us because we have other sources of purpose and satisfaction to draw on. Please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to Audiobook Library, as it truly helps this channel continue growing and bringing you more transformative content like this. Your subscription means we can keep sharing wisdom from timeless books that have the power to change lives. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss future content that could provide exactly the insight you need at exactly the right moment. Every subscriber helps build a community of people committed to growth, learning, and living with greater intention and purpose. As the book draws toward its conclusion, Crane weaves together all these threads into a coherent philosophy of living. He emphasizes again that the business of living is exactly that, a business requiring our full attention, our best efforts, and our conscious direction. We cannot afford to sleepwalk through our days, to live reactively rather than proactively, to let our lives be shaped entirely by circumstance and others' agendas. Each of us has been given the extraordinary gift of consciousness and agency, and with that gift comes the responsibility to make something meaningful of our time here. This isn't a burden but an opportunity, an invitation to participate fully in the grand adventure of existence rather than watching from the sidelines. The ultimate message of the book is one of hope and empowerment. Crane assures us that regardless of our past, regardless of our current circumstances, regardless of our limitations, we have within us the power to create a life worth living. This doesn't mean we can accomplish anything we might fantasize about or that we can transcend all constraints, but it does mean that we can choose our attitude, direct our efforts, cultivate our character, and make the most of whatever hand we've been dealt. It means that we are not helpless victims of fate, but active participants in creating our own experience and reality. Even in the most constrained circumstances, we retain some degree of choice, and it's in exercising that choice that we affirm our humanity and dignity. Crane reminds us that the business of living is not a destination we reach, but an ongoing practice we engage in every single day. Some days we'll do it better than others. We'll have moments of inspiration and moments of falling short. We'll make progress and experience setbacks. All of this is normal and natural, part of being human. What matters is that we keep showing up, keep trying, keep growing, keep moving in the direction of the person we want to become and the life we want to create. The journey itself is the point, not some imagined future state of perfection or completion. Life is happening right now. And the question is whether we're fully participating in it or letting it pass us by while we wait for some better moment. The practical application of these principles begins with small, concrete actions. Crane would encourage us to start where we are, with what we have, doing what we can. Perhaps that means committing to one positive habit, setting aside 15 minutes daily for reflection, reaching out to rebuild a neglected relationship, tackling a project we've been avoiding, or simply bringing more conscious attention to how we're spending our time. The specific starting point matters less than the commitment to actually start. Transformation happens through accumulated small actions, not through grand gestures or sudden revelations. The person who takes one small step each day will travel farther than the person who only dreams of giant leaps they never actually take. Crane also emphasizes the importance of patience with ourselves as we work to implement these principles. Change is difficult and will inevitably have moments of backsliding, forgetfulness, or failure. These moments aren't reasons for self-recrimination or giving up. They're simply part of the process. What matters is that we notice when we've drifted off course and gently redirect ourselves over and over again with compassion for our imperfect humanity. Progress isn't linear, and setbacks don't erase the progress we've already made. They're simply information about where we need more attention or different strategies. The goal isn't perfection, but consistent effort in the direction of growth. The book's wisdom extends to how we relate to difficulty and challenge. Crane would have us see obstacles not as cruel barriers to our happiness, but as opportunities to develop strength, wisdom, and character. Every challenge we face is an invitation to grow beyond our current capabilities, to discover resources within ourselves we didn't know we had. Without resistance, we remain weak. Without problems to solve, we never develop problem-solving skills. Without conflicts to navigate, we never learn to handle disagreement skillfully. This doesn't mean we should be grateful for suffering in some masochistic way, but rather that we should recognize that the difficulties we'd prefer to avoid often serve as our greatest teachers and developers. Crane's vision of a life well lived includes both achievement and enjoyment, both striving and contentment, both self-development and service to others. It's not about choosing between these apparent opposites, but about integrating them into a balanced whole. We work hard to accomplish meaningful goals, while also pausing to appreciate what we've already achieved. We strive to become better, while also accepting ourselves as we are. We serve others while also taking care of ourselves. We plan for the future, while also being present now. This both-and approach, rather than either-or thinking, allows for the complexity and nuance that characterizes a truly rich life. The book also speaks to the importance of community and not trying to live this life entirely on our own. While self-reliance and personal responsibility are crucial, so is recognizing our interdependence with others. We need each other for support, encouragement, perspective, and accountability. Crane would encourage us to find our people, whether that's family, friends, colleagues, or fellow travelers on similar journeys. These connections make our joys sweeter and our burdens lighter. They remind us we're not alone in our struggles. They provide mirrors that help us see ourselves more clearly. And they give us opportunities to contribute, to be needed, to make a difference in others' lives just as they make a difference in ours. As we reflect on all that Crane offers in this masterwork, perhaps the most revolutionary idea is simply that life is too important to leave to chance. The quality of our existence, the depth of our relationships, the meaning we derive from our days, the character we develop, the contribution we make, all of these crucial elements are significantly within our control if we're willing to take responsibility for shaping them. This is both sobering because it means we can't keep blaming circumstances for our dissatisfaction, and liberating because it means we have power we might not have realized we possessed. Frank Crane's enduring contribution lies in articulating these truths with clarity and conviction, in reminding us that life demands our active participation and conscious direction. His words continue to inspire generations of readers to wake up to their own potential and take responsibility for creating lives of meaning, purpose, and fulfillment. In a world that often encourages passivity, distraction, and conformity, his message stands as a powerful call to conscious, intentional, authentic living. The principles he articulates aren't trendy or temporary. They're rooted in timeless truths about human nature and what it means to live well. So let this be your invitation and your challenge, to engage fully with the business of living, to bring your whole self to each day, to pursue your own growth and development with dedication and patience, to contribute meaningfully to others and to the world, to create a life that reflects your deepest values and highest aspirations. The tools, principles, and insights you need are available to you. What remains is simply the decision to use them, the commitment to show up day after day, and the courage to keep trying even when it's difficult. Your life is waiting for you to truly live it, to squeeze from it every drop of meaning, joy, connection, and growth it has to offer. The time to start is now, this very moment, regardless of what time you've already lost or what obstacles you face. Remember that every person who has ever lived an extraordinary life started from ordinary circumstances, faced doubts and fears, made mistakes, and had moments of wanting to give up. The difference is that they persisted. They chose to keep learning, keep growing, keep contributing, keep showing up even when it was hard. They recognized that the business of living requires exactly what any business requires: attention, investment, strategy, persistence, and the willingness to adapt when circumstances change. Your life is your most important project, more important than any career accomplishment or material possession. It deserves your best thinking, your most committed effort, your wisest choices. The path forward is clear, even if challenging. It involves waking up each morning with intention, approaching each day as an opportunity rather than an obligation, treating each person we encounter with dignity and kindness, doing our work with excellence and pride, taking care of our physical and mental health, nurturing our important relationships, pursuing growth and learning, contributing to something beyond ourselves, finding moments of beauty and joy, reflecting on our experiences, and going to bed with the satisfaction of having lived the day well. When we string together enough days lived this way, we create a life of substance, meaning, and genuine fulfillment. So this summary of Frank Crane's The Business of Living is not just information to be passively consumed and forgotten. It's meant to be a catalyst for action, a reminder of possibilities, an encouragement to claim the power you already possess to direct your own life. Take what resonates. What speaks to your current situation? What addresses your specific challenges and opportunities? Let it germinate in your mind and heart. Talk about it with others. Most importantly, put it into practice. Start small if you must, but start. Take one principle, one insight, one practice from what you've heard today and commit to implementing it. Then build from there, gradually incorporating more wisdom into how you live, until these principles become not just ideas you know about, but realities you embody. The business of living well is the most important work you'll ever do, and this comprehensive exploration of Crane's timeless wisdom has equipped you with a philosophy and practical principles to guide you. You now know that living well isn't automatic or accidental, but requires conscious effort and wise choices. You know that you have far more control over your experience than you might have believed. You know what qualities to cultivate, what habits to develop, what pitfalls to avoid. Most importantly, you know that it's never too late to begin living more intentionally, more fully, more authentically. Your past doesn't determine your future unless you allow it to. Each new day is a fresh start, a blank page on which you get to write the next chapter of your story. May you take these insights and transform them from abstract wisdom into lived reality. May you approach each day with the consciousness that you're not just passing time but crafting a life. May you find the courage to be authentic, the persistence to overcome obstacles, the wisdom to make good choices, and the grace to forgive yourself when you fall short. May you build meaningful relationships, contribute to others, grow continuously, and find joy in the journey. And may you, at the end of your days, look back with satisfaction knowing that you truly lived, that you engaged fully with the great adventure of existence, that you made the most of your precious time here. The business of living awaits your full participation. Go forth and live brilliantly,